All right. So we're on day 3, relative frequency tables, doing a cool down called writing sample. So a couple of key concepts to start with. First of all, we looked at two-way tables last time. It was two different categories where we had certain numbers of things that fit into each category. Today we're going to talk about relative frequency tables, and relative frequency tables are really helpful because they help us identify some patterns. It's really hard to identify patterns and be able to say anything meaningful about a two-way table that just has numbers in it. So the way we'd create relative frequency tables, we do it by dividing the value in each cell in a two-way table, each box, by the total number of responses in either the entire table or the total responses in a row or a particular column. So the relative frequencies don't necessarily always mean that this is the percent of everyone that was asked. We just have to be really careful to figure out like what do these percentages mean, and then what do they tell us. And depending on what we're looking for, we're going to use different types of relative frequency tables. So let's take a look at an example here. So this two-way table displays the condition of a certain textbook and is priced for 120 of the books at a college bookstore. So we have 120 books total. A two-way relative frequency table is created by dividing each number in the two-way table by 120 because we have a total of 120 different values. That's all they're doing here. So they're just adding them all up. So what you do then is you take this 33 and you divide it by 120. So if you take 33 divided by 120, you should get this number right here. Which, looking at that, you might say, well, that's not a percentage. Well, sure, but just move your decimal over 2 places. It's 27.5. So that's not too bad. So that's one way to do it. Another way that you can do relative frequency tables is we can actually look at maybe the total of $10 or less. And if we look at this, the total of $10 or less is 36. And what we could do then is we could take this number, divide by 36, and what we're getting down here then, whatever this number ends up being, is the percent of the $10 or less category that's new. We could also do this the other way. We could add up all of these numbers here. 3 plus 9 plus 27 is going to be 39 total. What we could do then is we could take this divided by 39, and we could take that also divided by 39. Same thing here. And what we would get is each of these percentages then would tell us of the new, whatever it was, books, of the new books, what percent are $10 or less, more than 10 but less than 30, or 30 or more. So there's a few different ways to calculate this. So let's take a look at the cool down for just a second. So we've got 80 students asked to write a sentence and record the hand they used to write with. A teacher then determines whether each sentence is written neatly or not. The results are summarized in the table. So we've got our two-way table. We've got one category talking about whether their handwriting is neat or messy. And then we have another category with whether they wrote left-handed or right-handed. What we want to do is we want to complete the relative frequency table with correct proportions so that it could be used to answer the question, among the left-handed writers, what proportion have neat handwriting? Well, taking a look at this then, among the left-handed writers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this table down here using percentages based on just the left-handed writers by themselves. And then I'm going to do the same thing for right-handed writers, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to try to answer the question on your own. So first of all, let's get our totals calculated for just a moment here. So the total who wrote with their left hand is 15. Total who wrote with their right hand are 65. And if we wanted the total, which we don't necessarily need in this case, it would come out to be 80. So what I'm going to do then is, since this row added up to 15, I'm going to take each of these numbers and divide by 15. So 5 divided by 15, or 5 over 15, gives you 1/3 or 33.3%. And then 10 over 15 would give you 66.7%. So the next thing that you'd want to do to keep filling in your chart is to do the same thing for the right-handed. We've got our total of 65. I'm going to take that, divide by 65 down here. I'm going to take that, divide by 65 down here. And what you'll get is, a decimal. Actually, like with this one, you would have gotten 0.3333333, just, forever. And all I did was change it into a percent by moving the decimal 2 to the right. So do that for the second one, and then you should be able to say, among left-handed writers, what proportion have neat handwriting? And you should be able to say the percentage of right-handed writers who the teacher determined have messy handwriting. By the way, when it says proportion, we could either give a percent, but typically what they're asking for is actually this fraction right here. So they are looking for both, proportion and a percentage. Make sure you calculate both, or at least show both so you can answer the questions. If you have any questions on this still, let me know. I'm here to help.